Okay, and we should be live. Wow, Sam Arthur. I've heard so many wonderful things about you from Amy Houston, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's a
So,
pleasure
uh,
to be here. Thank
so
you for having me.
yeah, before I forget, I will introduce myself because I always forget. I'm Mel Rosenberg. I am the host of the Children's Literature channel of the New Books Network, and I am here with Sam Arthur, who is one of the men behind. I want to call you the co-founder, the guiding light, the creative spirit of Flying Eye Books. Having said that, Sam, what do you do?
It's a very good question. I uh, My job title is co-founder, creative director, and what that means in practice is that I'm responsible for originating the publishing that we do. So what does that mean? That means in many ways I am the person that tries to find the talent, the new books, the new creators, and then develops it, tries to persuade the rest of my company that something is worth doing. And then ultimately, once that uh, acquisition and negotiation has happened successfully, I hand the project down the line to our editors and designers and marketeers and salespeople and production people, and ultimately it goes on. So I guess I am responsible for starting things off, and on top of that, I keep, my business partner, our CEO, Harry Quinner, is more in charge of the finance and the legal, the contracts and stuff. But I'm there, when he's on holiday or in case I have to, sign something, I can do that. So I'm very much on the board, on the management side too. So it's straddling a lot of different things. I think we're 21 staff. And obviously that's in-house people, and we work with, many authors, illustrators, you know, all kinds of different experts, fact checkers, you name it, all of the contributors to our books, that are not in-house. So there's a lot of people involved in the operation.
Okay, so two things here. First of all, as my astute listeners can gain from listening to you, you are British, and
Correct.
Flying Eye Books is in London.
Absolutely.
And so, one of the things I'm going to ask you, if you don't allude to it anyways, what are the differences between UK publishers and US publishers? And I'm not only talking about the way you spell color and honor. But a few words about the publishing house. You started about 15 years ago. You started it. And how many books are you publishing these days? Children's books.
So, we always seem to be trying to publish around 40. We're always in and around that number. Um, so it's a lot for us, for 21 people. Um, I mean, what's the difference between a UK house and an American house? Um, you know what? I'm not sure. I mean, I feel like we're all attempting to create content for children, whether it's educational, whether it's entertainment, whether it's both. That's primarily what we're trying to do. We publish directly into the US market as well with Penguin Random House. So we're di distributed in Canada and the US as we are in the UK and Australia. There definitely is a difference between the markets. You can't, something that works in the UK doesn't always work in America and vice versa.
Do you
Um,
ever, one second, Sam, do you ever know why that is?
I don't. I have to say, I mean, I wish I knew, but it's not just to do with America and the UK. It's about what makes a book work and not work. I mean, that's the question. So for us, we make our books and we make them our aim is to sell them all over the world. So our aim is to sell them to publishers in all of the other countries in the world and for them to be translated into as many languages as possible. So, certainly there's always books that work better in certain countries and cultures than in others. And sometimes it's for obvious reasons to do with geography or to do with,
What, what's your record? Hilda, what's your record of selling
oh,
outside?
the most languages, I think maybe it could be, I don't know if it's Hilda, but it's certainly 20. We've done Hilda in, I think, 23, it might be 24 languages, 23, I think. Um, we've done a really great book called I Ate Sunshine for Breakfast, which is also over 20 languages. Um, so that's where yeah, I mean, I see and hear of some books that are 30 languages plus. So that's yeah. So if there are any smaller territories listening, get in touch because we like doing the smaller deals as much as we like doing the big ones. So we had something recently, I think in Mongolian um what was and another one
Well,
in Kazakh as well, which
okay,
was
let me know what you have in Hebrew. Maybe I can.
we have Hilda in Hebrew.
Mhm.
We have quite a few books in Hebrew, so that's
Okay,
great. Yeah.
there you
Always
are.
happy to have more too.
Well, just let me know. Because of course I'm here in near Tel Aviv. And take us through your career. How did this happen to you? You don't wake up in the morning and say, when I grow up, I'm going to found and be the creative director of a children's publishing house.
Yeah, I didn't do that didn't happen like that. Um I think so few of us really know exactly what we want to do.
Well,
I think
let me help. You were born,
when I was born,
and your name is
I
Sam
think I
Arthur.
first wanted to be
That's an interesting name. A few words about your name,
okay,
like you have two private names, no family name.
yeah, so actually my family name is Miller. But when I was my first job, okay, so let me go back. When I was a kid, I was only concerned with drawing and a little bit of playing football or soccer, but I just loved to draw, and that was my deal. So I knew from a very early age that I was going to go to art school. That was it. That's as far as I had thought what I was going to do. So when I got to art school, I went to Central St. Martin's in London, and I did graphics, but it was kind of graphic design, photography, silkscreen printing, illustration, bit of animation, filmmaking, lots of different disciplines. It was great. Um, and then when I graduated from St. Martin's, I thought, all right, wow, what am I going to do now? And at that point, I really liked moving image stuff. So I knew I was a storyteller. So I started to make little films and I got into doing music videos because at the time, this was in the late 90s, the early noughties, you could just about make a living from that. And so I became a music video director primarily, but I also directed quite a few commercials and short films. So I did that for 10 years and I made a living and it was good. Um, it got to a point I think where I just started my family with my wife, and we had our first child, a son, and what I was doing involved a lot of travel, which is great when you're young, but actually when you got a young family, it wasn't quite as and it's not just the travel, it's like you don't know where you're going to be from one week to the next. You just drop everything and go to I don't know. I went around the world when I was directing. I literally went around the world in 21 days for CNN on one
Wow.
job, which was pretty cool. But it's not as easy to keep that up. So an opportunity uh, arose with a business partner to create a publishing imprint, and we we made um, No Brow, which is at the time, this was 2008. Um, this idea of print being dead was kind of, digital taking over, and Alex and I, my business partner, and I thought, well, we like books, we love books, we want to celebrate books, and we also think there's a niche in the UK at that time for visual books and for visual storytelling. So that's what No Brow was all about. And we were really interested in graphic novels and comics and just, visual storytelling, really. So we were coming at publishing from a very visual sort of direction. And given that in the UK especially, we have a very literary culture, the publishing sort of space, actually there was a nice gap for this visual sort of approach. And I think, we made a bit of an impact in that way. Um, quite it sort of about, I think, well, Flying Eye Books is now 11 years old. So, sort of a few years into doing No Brow, we realized um that we hadn't delineated our publishing. It was just for everybody, which is quite naive, to be honest. And so Flying Eye Books was really our getting serious about targeting our market and our audience. And we also understood at that point that the children's book market, we'd done some children's books and some books under No Brow that could be termed children's books. But we realized with a targeted, branded, approach, and a children's imprint, we could, reach our audience so much more easily. And I think Hilda was the catalyst for that. So we created Flying Eye Books to really, I suppose, make the most of what we had with Hilda, which is a comic book by Luke Pearson that eventually and has been turned into a TV series on Netflix, three series on Netflix, no less, of animated show, animated BAFTA Annie award-winning animation. So fantastic. And
Yippee.
actually, the children's publishing is, something that I'd always had a real passion for anyway. So for us, it wasn't so much a change. It was just a kind of narrowing of our sights, as it were.
Okay, so Sam, after this wonderful introduction, a little bit about you, a little about Flying Eye. Now we get down to what the Jews call tachlis, the real guts. What are
Yeah.
you looking for? We have now thousands of potential authors and illustrators, and you have a sort of open submission
Mhm.
policy.
Yeah.
Um, I want you to do some reverse pitching now.
Okay.
You must be looking for something. What are you looking for? How can we help?
Yeah, yeah. So right now we're looking for picture books. So picture books for me is very important because I personally go through our submissions as often as I can, right? So we have open.
Hold on, hold on, hold on. How many do you get a month?
It's a lot. It's a lot. Um, I'm always amazed, and honestly,
Well,
like,
you go through all of them, or there's
yeah,
somebody that
yeah.
vets them before you get them?
No one vets them. No, I vet them. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
because because I know what I'm looking for, and
Okay.
if I leave this to, there's no disrespect to a more junior member of the team, but to me this is an
No,
incredibly
look,
important job.
I'm with you 100%. So this is really important for all of the people who are listening, who are authors, illustrators, who are pitching, querying to you.
Mm.
Um, so what is important? What do you look for? the query
So
letter,
yeah, yeah, I'm
the
really
text,
glad to
what?
do this because actually some, I feel like, we have some guidelines on our website for what we're looking for and stuff, which I think is helpful. You'll be amazed how many people don't actually read that and then send exactly the stuff that I've said possibly we're really not interested in. So the things that are really interesting for us are primarily picture books. But then when I say picture books, I'm talking about, what we call in the trade kind of picture flats, which is let's say a 32 page story. So it's
Yeah.
aimed at 3 to 5 year olds. That doesn't mean it couldn't be for slightly younger or slightly older, but our core is, and the reason for that is that this book, for example, a picture book, is designed specifically to be read by adults to children and to show the
I
pictures.
have to get my hands on that,
So
on your rooster book.
that's a great one, and it's coming out. Well, it's out now actually. So
Hmm.
check it out. It's by Michael Parkin.
Okay.
Um,
I want the
so
signed copy.
it can be
Let's
arranged.
do an interview with the author.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He'd love to do that. So Michael is great. It's his first author illustrator picture book. He's done lots of non-fiction picture books as an illustrator, but this is his first one that he's written. So, but to digress, this is
No, you're not digressing. I
the
digress.
opposite.
You are regressing.
Regressing exactly to undigress. But so the reason why I always talk about the picture books first is that there are core. And what a publisher really is looking for is a 32 page, which means 12 pages of content picture book. And you might get away with 13, depending on whether it's paperback or hardback. But generally speaking, this is the kind of core of our business. It could be 40 pages, it could be 48, maybe at an absolute push. But it's important to understand these things because in publishing terms, more paper, more pages, more paper, more money. But also, if you've ever tried to read a bedtime story, once you to a small child, if you're falling asleep before the child, it's probably because the book is more than 40 pages long. And actually, that's quite a lot to get through. So, we have there's method in our madness. But the thing is, a lot of people writing picture books don't always understand or realize that. So if you're creating a picture book and it's more than, let's say, it should be 12 or 16 there or thereabouts pages of content, then it's interesting to a publisher. If it's beyond that, then they're going to turn off. So you've got to have an understanding of what physically makes a book. So, if you take a sheet of A4 paper and you fold it in half and half and half again, and you write the numbers on the pages, and then you staple it in the middle and you cut with the scissors and you make a little book, then you can see if you don't do that with the and cut them and then you unfold the page and you see where all the numbers are and they're all back to front and upside down. This is the printer's imposition. So a book is it's physically impossible to make a book without having this process in mind. So if you've got a 13-page picture book or a 27-page picture book, it's not, we can't do that. So we're looking for 32 pages, which means that we also need room for the imprint page, for the end papers, for maybe an intro page. Now, there's lots of ways you can lay out a book, but that's generally speaking how publishers do it. So one of my first bits of advice to anyone wanting to send not just content to us, but to any publisher is just really familiarize yourself with the norms. It's not difficult because all of the books you'll have on your shelf will comply more or less with these norms. So try and fit in to that format and you'll have more opportunities. The
So
next thing,
Sam, can I just add here
yeah,
that one of the things that we authors tend not to do is to dummy up our books. And I
yeah,
think this is a huge mistake. I talk about it all the time. Folks, you've listened to Sam Arthur. He wants a text that reads in a 32-page format. Dummy up the book.
yeah, exactly. And
Okay.
that's the next thing I was going to say is send it to me as a PDF. You could send it, if it's a Word document, but split it up into spreads because
Ah,
we read picture books as spreads,
mm.
not as individual pages. We read them as spreads. So
You're the first publisher that has told me that you prefer to read them as a spread. Let's
double
go.
page
So
spread.
so so yeah. So this is something that I want to examine with you.
Hmm.
You have a preference for author illustrators.
We don't have a preference, but we do work with a lot of author illustrators, but not exclusively.
So does
We're
an
well
author
known.
who's not an illustrator have a chance if they send
Yeah,
you
yeah.
a marvelous text?
Yeah, so we've recently acquired a few texts from writers, and the best way of if you don't have a illustration uh, available to you, if you're not able to do it yourself, I don't mind, that's fine. But what I always say is that if you can write in spreads and you can write your text and then maybe in a different color or in italics or in brackets or all of those things, give a tell me what's happening in the illustration. Now, this is a suggestion, right? It doesn't mean that we're 100% going to like just, but what it means is that as a writer, you're thinking about how to communicate with picture books because a picture book is a combination of words and pictures. And they're both, if they're doing the same thing, if they're communicating the same information, it's boring. But if one is playing with the other, then it becomes interesting. And that's where I get excited is when I see somebody their words, their verse, whatever it is, and then they're saying, and this is what's happening in the images, and it's in some kind of it's an answer, or it's a there's some dramatic irony, or there's something that's happening that's the magic of picture books. Now, if the illustrations are purely there to just illuminate the text and that's it, then it's a little limiting. It's a little bit boring. But if it's they're really playing and singing together, they're singing different parts of the same song, if you see what I mean. They're not
Yeah,
just singing the same tune.
yeah, obviously. But Sam, you are different than most publishers. And most agents. Um, and that is, you are saying, okay, send me as an author who's not an illustrator, send me your visual sense of this book. In America, we teach people send as few art notes as possible, send a Word document. Yeah, dummy up the book, but send it as a Word document so the art director or the editor, who's ever parsing up the pages, is gonna have their own sense of how to do it. And you're saying something that's different here. I
Yeah,
applaud you
yeah.
for that. I applaud you for that. Write the book, but send it to me with your vision of what it's going to
Yeah.
look like.
It doesn't mean we're gonna completely go along with your vision if we take it, but what it means is there's a starting place. And for me, that's where we go. We have a seed, and that seed has to grow into, something much bigger. And it's a big process. But I think that if we find people that have this way of creating ideas, and it's not just here's my text, I've done that, we're finished. But often we work with illustrators that will then add their vision to something, and let's hope even that it's even better and even more incredible than the writer was originally thinking. That's the goal in a way, is that everyone's adding their expertise. But if we're coming at this with, very much that the text is an idea, and, there may be occasionally, just an incredible text that we love that doesn't need any, extra, direction for the illustrator. But this is, for me, when I'm looking, the things that stand out to me quite often it's just when someone really understands what a picture book is and how it works. And if they're demonstrating that in the manuscript, then I think, then it makes me notice a bit more. So that's my main kind of advice on that. And I can see, a lot. I'd say 80% of what I get sent, is very far away from something that we would, could consider, just because it doesn't seem to take those things into account.
Sam, I had a publisher um, on the interview program about 2 months ago, and he received hundreds of submissions. So I'm preparing
I mean,
if
we receive hundreds of them already. So I mean, if you're maybe this is
no, man, people are gonna watch you now and say, "Oh my goodness, this is my dream publisher." So just be prepared for being inundated in the
but
coming
but
week
but
or
you
so.
know, it's being serious about this though, that there's um most of the big publishers at least have, what they call no unsolicited manuscripts. We can only accept agented manuscripts. Um, we don't have that policy. Um, Not all of our books come through our submissions, but lots do. I think that just because you're not a published author, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be or couldn't be. Also, if you're not agented, that isn't an issue. If you are agented, that isn't an issue. I'm very happy if it's the right project. I want to work with you. I don't mind if you have an agent or don't have an agent. Agents can be great. They can cut through a lot of the questions, because they know they've been there, they've done that. So great, they can be really helpful. Some of them. Um, but then, like if you don't have an agent, but we believe in the project, we will walk you through it. We will explain everything. There's no, that's in our interest to do that.
Okay, this is all wonderful so far. Now, when you're reading a manuscript, what are you looking for? Because on the one hand, you're looking for a beautiful story, but
Mhm.
on the other hand, maybe you're looking for a marketing hook, a marketing message. Sometimes these two conflict with one another. Where do
Mm.
you stand on this when you're reading a manuscript?
Oh, I mean, the
Sorry, but I have to ask you.
yeah, no, it's when when I find something that I like, the easiest way of answering this is to explain the process that we go to acquire things. So essentially, every month, my team has an acquisitions meeting. So it's my job and that of our other commissioning editors to pitch new projects to the sales and marketing team. So, if the sales and marketing team don't feel like there's enough meat on the bones, as it were, to actually be able to take this project, run with it, and sell it in the marketplace, then it gets found out in that meeting. So, the questions are asked, what makes this a marketable product? Ultimately, if we can't sell it, then we can't.
But Sam, let's face it. This is not a situation where you have an imprint in a large house. You own the house.
Yeah.
So, has it ever happened where you say, listen, guys, this is a beautiful manuscript and it's going to sell? I just have that gut feeling. Um, that's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering.
It- It's harder than you think to make that. If you don't have consensus, it's very difficult, because
So you listen to your marketing
yeah,
team.
yeah, yeah. We have to. And the other thing is, the team that are working on it, the editors, the designers, the production people, and all of the sales team. If they're actually invested in it from day one, they kind of become stakeholders for that project. They feel part of it. And that's really important, for us as a company and the way that we operate. It's
That
not just
that
about
that
my
that that
will.
that.
We're
So
doing this.
everybody on the team is a white knight of the project.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're
Fantastic.
really fighting for it. And I believe that's what you need to make something successful. So if I just come along and say, I don't care if anyone likes this, we're doing it, it just doesn't have the same vibe. It's not a good way of going about it.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you a question that you don't have to answer. What would be a typical print run of a picture book?
Um, I mean, look, there's no point doing anything less than 3,000 copies because you can't get any numbers on that. But to be honest, 3,000 isn't enough to make it commercially, really viable or successful. So then, it becomes, it's three it would be maybe a reprint amount or something. So a first book, if we're publishing into the UK and the US, is going to be up from there. How far up it goes, it depends on how much interest we are getting from our pre-sales, with our distributors, just the way that people are thinking about it. We're very cautious. We don't want to overprint. We have done it before. So, we're not gonna do, 20,000 copies of a book off the bat. It's just not something that we would do. So there you go. You've got like a range, and it's going to be somewhere in between, depending on the book.
So, is there particular? So I'm going to ask this question. This is a difficult question for me to ask. When I go to the UK and I go to Waterstones and I sit and I spend a day reading thousands of books or whatever, and buying one, and then I go to the States and I go to the or Canada, I go to the public libraries. I'm seeing different books.
Mm.
I'm seeing different books. Um, and you have books that haven't succeeded that well in the UK, but have in other countries, or vice versa.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The books that work universally everywhere are they're the kind of rubies, the diamonds that you're searching for in the dust. But those ones are really hard. I mean, that's really tough. So if something works really well in foreign rights, but not so well in the UK, or if something works great in the US but not so much in foreign rights, or if something it's not uncommon for that to happen. It's not our aim though. I mean, we want to publish things that work everywhere, but that's it's not so easy. So I mean, an example of a book that's done incredibly well. It's a bestseller in the UK is Shackleton's Journey by William Grill. It's about essentially a British, although he was actually Irish, Ernest Shackleton, polar explorer. And, he's a really big deal in the UK, not really so much in the US. So it does pretty well in the US. But it's not like it hasn't captured the imagination in the US in the same way as it has in the UK. But it's done solidly there. And then in international rights, the funny thing is that in certain places as well, it's done okay. But we couldn't sell it in Scandinavia for countries for a long time because, as they kept telling us, we have much more successful polar explorers in our own countries. And I said, but that's the joy of this book. It's about a guy who took a boat and it was destroyed. And how did he rescue his crew? He was an epic failure. This is the amazing story. That was lost on them a little bit. They eventually took it, which I'm glad about. But it's I'm saying I think it was in I don't know if it was in Norway, but I think it was in Sweden. Anyway, but I'm not sure if it's we've managed. I don't think we got it into Norway. But the but that's the nuance of the culture, the histories of the countries, and what are household names, what are things that people take for granted, and it's very difficult to find stories that travel across borders in that way.
So Sam, we've agreed that we don't know what we're looking for. But on the other hand, we do. We think that we might know where the rubies and diamonds are. So any specific subgenres, topics
Yeah.
that you think you'd be more interested in right now?
Um, so right now, we have um, if I go up to we do our picture books, we do what we call our graphic readers, which is like this, which are a kind of mix of um, narrative text and some paneled and also some speech bubbles. Sorry, I'm not very good at
Oh, it's excellent.
and um and so that we call a graphic reader. So it's kind of like a graphic novel, but it's got a bit more narrative text. And then we have our young comics, which are like this is a Hilda, which is you'll see, just from the layout, it's more panels and it's only really uh dialogue speech bubbles, so not really any narrative text. And then we go up to graphic novels for middle grade, which have got more panels per page and more pages. And we go up to young adult as well with our graphic novels. So these are all, these are the formats. They're not genre, it's not a genre. Comics is just a format. But whatever I'm looking for, I want it to speak to that age group. I want it to be relevant to them. So, a lot of people think, oh, I think the world is really, quite sort of anxious at the moment. So we have a lot of books coming in that have to do with, mental health. And I think that's probably great. But I think that for a young, a picture book or or graphic readers, which was for 6 to 9 year olds, I'm not convinced that it might be that the route to, healthy mental sort of processes is not through a book specifically about mental health, because I think it's going to be hard to get kids interested in that subject. So
Mhm.
I think if you can find ways to make a kid laugh, I'm there basically. I want that book to be a joyous experience. I want that to be something that stays with a child. And I think that the more serious kind of worthy stuff, I think it's more for the parents than it is for the kids. That's my personal um take. So I get a lot of books that seem like they're really for the grown-ups and not really for the kids. So I think try and get head into the mindset of your audience is my next tip. So if you can get a laugh, that's great. I'm also interested right now in non-fiction, comics and graphic readers. So if we can tell stories, non-fiction subjects, STEM subjects, but do it in a fun way via comics and graphic approach, that's something I'm really interested in. Um, what else? Character-driven stuff. It seems obvious, but so many books have very generic characters and it's not specific enough. Like what is this person, this cat? Who are they? What makes them tick? Why do I care about them? Kids want to care about the characters they're reading about as much as adults do. So let's, get real about the characters. Um, yeah.
I love that. Let's get real about the fictional characters. I
Yeah.
love that, Sam. Before we part, um, at least for today, because I want to have you back another time. If did you enjoy yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love
Um,
I love talking about our books, and this is great.
okay. So before I let you go back to your 40 books a year, which is daunting, I'm gonna I never, because I'm a writing person, I never give enough space for the illustrations. Oh, that was good. And you're a visual person. A few words about illustrators. Are you looking for illustrators? Um,
Always, always. Always, always, always. And sometimes with illustration and illustrators, you could just send us a link to your website, or a PDF of a recent portfolio. You don't always have to have a project. It might just be that your work is exactly what we're looking for at that moment in time. Who knows? So that's never a bad thing to do. I would always just suggest that you just get in touch and say hi. I always think it's great if we can work with the people that want to work with us. So, I think if we're trying to sort of hound someone so much that we want to work with, but they're not really, for whatever reason, they're too busy for us, then maybe that's not a good fit. But I'm always, we're always looking out for people. So yeah, that's I think that's like a given.
Incredible. Anything I haven't asked you? So one second, you avoided answering one question at the beginning. So Sam Arthur are your two private names?
Oh yeah, yeah, sorry. So yeah, I was gonna say when I first started directing music videos, there was another director called Sam Miller, which is my surname. So at that time, the and it's a bit like when you're an actor, you can't have the same name as another
Yeah, yeah.
person. So and I got confused with this guy who was much senior to me and has done feature films and stuff since. I got confused with him like just once. So I was like, okay, yeah, I kind of need to. So I just used my middle name, which is Arthur, and and then that just stuck. Because then by the time I was 10 years of having that name, I had lots of contacts and I didn't want to sort of give up. That is a bit strange. So yeah, people think it's a bit weird. And I'm no relation to the Arthur Miller. My grandfather was called, I like to say he was Arthur Miller, the farmer, as opposed to the playwright. But but yeah, so Arthur is Sam Arthur is that's me, and but also Sam Miller is me too. So very confusing for new people in the office who are accepting mail on my behalf because it comes in both and in combinations of all the names. But there we go. So yeah, kind of boring, sorry, but that's where it comes from.
It's not boring at all. I'm intrigued by names people have and the names that they take on. And very often people in the kidlit industry take on names.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
always interesting, and in your situation, the same. And this was a guess for me because I really didn't know, how you ended up with this name. And you could say, well, my first name is Sam, my last name is Arthur, but you know,
But you were right. You had the
yeah,
correct
well,
instinct to go there. Yeah.
sometimes that happens. Sam, what happened? I asked you.
Um, so
How do you like your coffee for when
I
we
don't
meet?
drink coffee.
For when we meet in East London,
I
you see.
don't drink coffee, so don't offer me coffee. I drink tea. I'm English, so
All
tea
right.
with milk, that's fine. It's hard to get a good cup of tea with milk in Bologna though, but in fact anywhere outside of the
Well,
UK.
we'll miss you in Bologna, but for all the authors, illustrators, and kidlit people traveling to Bologna, you have a stand. Flying iBooks has a stand, and it's worthwhile coming to visit.
Absolutely. Yeah, go and have a look. It's open
And
as
I,
long as long as you're not too disrupting of the people, the very talented sales staff that I have doing lots of deals with their um world counterparts. Yeah, come on the stand and have a look at the books. We're mm, we're in now I'm going to get it wrong. I feel like hall 24 or is
uh,
it
we,
5? Anyway,
it's a small place. It's a small place.
you'll
We'll find
find
you.
us. Yeah, yeah. It's where most of the British publishers are, I feel. Um, and it's
It's
overlooking, there's that kind of courtyard bit that's in the middle with
yeah,
the trees and stuff. It's
Sam.
sort of onto
It's
that.
where it's where the wild things are.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Absolutely.
listen, this has been really fantastic. Um, I'm going to ask you to go up and come back in for a moment, so you and I will have a little
Okay,
tete-a-tete.
cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But this has been a remarkable interview. Thank you for your candor. I mean, it's incredible to have someone on the show who started a publishing house, publishes 40 books a year, and is so engaging and so forthcoming. And I look forward to seeing what is going to appear um, in the coming years.
Me
So
too.
I've been with Sam Arthur, Flying iBooks, and I'm Mel Rosenberg, the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network. Sam, go ahead and come back. We're going to say goodbye to everybody else. Everybody else, buy Flying iBooks. If you're in the States, check them out on Penguin Random House. Visit them in Bologna and send Sam amazing manuscripts. Bye, everybody, except for Sam.